How's it going, lads? My name is Penguin Power, and today I've got a bit of a different video for you all. Unlike the last few videos, this isn't related to Batman. I said towards the end of the Cold Heart No Damage run that I would be taking a break from Batman games to try out some other games that I wanted to play for videos, and this is sort of the beginning of that. Today's video will be delving into the world of Warhammer 40,000 as I aim to play through the main campaign of Space Marine 2. This is not a challenge run despite my previous brand of doing said challenge runs, and I have a few reasons for that. Reason A is that this was my first time playing through the Space Marine 2 campaign, and I really did not want to deal with any challenges in an already blind playthrough. Reason B is that the game throws so much shit at you during combat encounters that for me it would have been near impossible to do something like a no damage run of this game or any other challenge. Despite the lack of challenge that came with this run, it was still a lot of fun to run around as the Space Marines and tear through enemies as the game went on, especially towards the end of the game. Now with all that out of the way, this video will contain spoilers for the stories of Space Marines 2, as well as some spoilers for the main story of Space Marine 1. We'll get there eventually. And now, sit back, relax, and enjoy as I take you through my journey with the second company, and let's dive into the world of Space Marine 2. As with any good first playthrough of a game, I began by making sure my settings are as they should be and my aspect ratio is where I want it. I've gotten a new monitor since the Arkham videos, and it is very evident in the Deep Rock video. With the settings checked, I select normal difficulty and start a new game. The game opens up on planet Kadaku, which has evidently seen better days. The soldiers send out a message for some assistance, and who responds but the Space Marines, more specifically, the Death Watch branch. We see the lads preparing for a fight in their ship before it gets overrun by Tyranids, sending the ship and thus the Marines on an express trip to the surface. With that out of the way, we're into the gameplay and given the objective to head towards the crash site and find our brothers. On our way to the crash site, the fellows over the comms talk about detonating a virus bomb in the lower atmosphere, and it becomes very evident that our own comms were disabled during the crash. I tear through this first group of enemies no problem and continue on as though there was no interruption. On the path, we encounter more Tyranids as I learn how to parry, a button that I immediately change because I didn't like how it controlled. I then find a dead Space Marine, steal his gun, and continue on my way. The gentlemen over comms talk about some of the issues launching the bomb, so I have to go deal with it. After dealing with these scum, I turn on subtitles so I have some semblance of an idea of what's going on, and then change the aim button after struggling to use my gun properly. I reach the crash site, and after more violence, take the virus bomb off this guy's dead body. The Tyranids, however, can't have that, so they ambush me and I end their meaningless existence. After the ambush, I head inside and begin the quest to find the orbital launcher, instead finding another dead body and a new gun. I then conduct more violence and make it to the launcher with no real issue. Since nothing is ever that easy though, I need to find the main console to override the controls and launch this goddamn bomb. These idiots in the hallway attempt to stop me, so I deal with them the only way I know how, with the barrel of my gun and the blade of my chainsword. I make it to the console and begin the launch sequence and promptly get put in my place again as an ambush of Tyranids make their way to the facility. Somehow this gets survived and I successfully launch the virus bomb. My rifle then briefly runs out of ammo and I get jumped, forcing me to the lower level where I remove my helmet. This handsome fellow that we'll be playing as is Titus, a former Ultramarine and the main protagonist of Space Marine 1. Before I can give a quick plot recap of that game though, an ambush arrives and I deal with them accordingly. A big guy then arrives and takes the beating I give him before stabbing Titus and then getting shot like a fool. Titus then awakes on the battle barge, and Skeletor here tells us that we did in fact die, but something known as the Rubicon surgery was able to keep us alive. Before we can go back to the Death Watch though, Titus is told that he is now to return to the ranks of the Ultramarines as his penance has been served. Whilst he pledges allegiance, allow me to tell you exactly what that means. In Space Marine 1, Titus fought against the Orcs and the Heretics on the planet Graia, where he learned that he was immune to the Heretics' magic. Seeing this, his team member Leandros reported him to the Inquisition like the fool he is, and Titus was forced to spend over a century in both prison and serving with the Death Watch. With all that info dumped, we get the title card, and Skeletor informs us that our accusations have been removed from the archives. And now with the prologue mission done, I quickly pause and reset the game so I can switch the controller for a better experience. I head up this elevator and meet with Captain Akaran, who looks an awful lot like my father. He tells us that the Tyranids are fighting us on 2 separate planets and we need to go defend some turrets on one of them to evacuate it safely. Gadriel then arrives, followed by Chiron, and we've got our squad for the game. Despite the online play being enabled at this point, none of my friends were online, so I continued my quest in single player. We hop onto the Thunderhawk and make our way back to the planet below. On the ship, Gadriel talks about Titus serving on the Death Watch, and we land to begin the mission. Once on the ground, we talk with the Major, who tells us that she knows a way to the guns. We then join the front lines briefly before splitting off into the jungle. After committing more Tyranid genocide, this tower blows up, so we make them pay for it and continue onwards. We arrive at the facility and proceed to hold off more waves of Tyranids before the gate opens and we head inside. Once inside, we discover that the base seems to have a pest problem, so our pest control squad goes to work cleaning them out. I then pause for a reason that is at the time of writing and even voicing unknown to me, and then after resuming, I continue through the base, where after opening this gate, we join the soldiers and begin yet another assault. With the power of tanks now on our side, we tear through these scum and take back the facility. Since nothing is ever that simple though, we need to reset the targeting systems because they're somehow jammed. We head on through and do so, and fight against many waves of Tyranids as Titus raises the satellites and resets the targeting systems. The gargoyles then decide to attack the antennae, and we naturally defend them. With the guns fully functioning again, one of them lets out a blast and destroys the ship floating overhead. With our mission complete, the squad heads back to the battle barge to inform Akaran of our victory. Once back on the ship, we discover that one of our soldiers died in the attack, and thus we head up to speak with the captain. He informs us that Archmagos Nozick refuses to cooperate and leave without his data, so we gotta go and get it, and by extension, him. Titus comes up with a plan to distract the Tyranids, and we speak to the squad about their new mission. They return by telling Titus that Archmagos Galileo has summoned him, so we go and look at the armory. I, of course, refuse to change anything, and before we head out, Skeletor gives us the lock-in speech, and the game attempts to get me to play the PvE mode. Once again, seeing as I have no friends online, I refuse and head onto the ship to begin the next mission. On the planet, Nozick continues to be uncooperative and sends the squad out to his facility to collect the data. The Major tries to warn us that many teams have died on their way, but she evidently doesn't seem to remember who she's talking to. Once in the jungle, we begin the journey to the facility, and I commit more genocide, briefly pausing for a moment, and then once I get back, I am informed that we are being hunted by something. We find some dead bodies that I loot for a plasma pistol, and then continue on through the jungle. After yet another ambush, snipers get introduced, so we deal with them accordingly. We head through a checkpoint to discover the army slightly struggling, so we step in to handle things unlike them. More continuing, and the squad comes face to face with what's been hunting them, a lictor. This fight took me out once before we managed to gang up on it and take it down, making sure to take it out with its own arm, just for good measure. We make it to the bunker, then head down this elevator while Nozick insults us. Once inside, we find another dead Marine, of which we steal his flamethrower and continue on. Using said flamethrower, we light the vermin in the next room on fire to make a path so we can continue. Since nothing is ever that easy though, we have to go and restore power to the bunker so we can continue further. After dealing with some scum, I restore power and move further into the facility. With more Tyranid blood on my hands, I almost die in the next room, and then the other team calls in to let us know that their mission is complete. Once again, the main quest requires me to light rats on fire, so I do so as we assist Nozick in restoring power to the transmitter. Although once again, I almost die due to the mix of rats and Tyranids, but somehow make it long enough to restore the transmitter's power fully. With the power back on, we head up to the control room and transmit Nozick's anime collection that he just couldn't live without. With us done here, we head to the roof and watch as Nozick's ship gets shot down, and we gotta go find it. The lads then head back down to collect some jump packs, and I proceed to have too much fun with them and the chainsword before making it over to a wall of biomass. Naturally, we plant bombs on the wall and light it up so we can continue on our path. We get to the crash site to find that the Marines on board, as well as Nozick himself, are all dead in a moment that I don't know if I'm allowed to show, but I'll do it anyways. Titus approaches the ship and briefly gets a migraine as another Thunderhawk arrives to collect the contents of the crashed ship. The tech priest tries to stop us from boarding, to which we do it anyways, and the soldiers bring on this weird glowing thing that might be important later. Once he awakes on the battle barge, Titus overhears Gadriel and Chiron talking about him, and they tell us that we should go get checked out, but after the episode on the planet. Titus of course declines and moves right to go speak with Akaran, who scolds us as we establish there is chaos in our midst. With Nozick dead, we need to go find another guy who can work on Project Aurora, so we need to access a supercomputer to get his tracker and where he is. After more discussion with Akaran, the fellows tell us to go check in with Galileo, and on the way, Skeletor voices his suspicion of us. Once he meets with Galileo, Titus finally agrees to a diagnostic, which takes a minute to be completed. Once it's done, Galileo tells us we're not quite where we should be, but it should be fine. And with more secrecy about the Aurora project, we head out to go find any info on the guy we need. As we land, the pilot tells us that we'll have to go take the cargo elevator the rest of the way, but of course it's broken and we need to go fix it. We find ourselves traversing rooftops Batman style and committing more mass genocide along the way. Once we get this bridge to work again, we head further along the path and into the control room. With the power restored, more violence occurs and we make it back to the elevator in mostly one piece. We then hop on and very politely ask all of the Tyranids to stop interfering with our elevator ride until we make it to the top. With the door not working, we make our way to the vents and then inside the facility, where we somehow don't go the wrong way before beginning a full reset that takes the power out. As is only natural, we almost get jumped in the dark, but since Titus is simply built different, there is no issue in taking them out. With the scum dealt with, the power returns and we move on through the door and in deeper into the facility. Inside the chapel, I briefly lose my shit laughing at Chiron running through these wooden chairs, and we proceed onward with no further delay. Well, shit. We keep our distance and unload on it until the creature starts glowing red, then I execute him in a way that a disgusting creature like it deserves. We continue onwards and experience what the prophets known as the Weather Girls were referring to as bodies begin to rain from the sky. Despite that odd occurrence, we mow through more Tyranids and after a quick elevator ride discover not just a giant reactor, but the data center we need. Titus uses his expert convincing skills to get the machine spirit to cooperate, and after getting Luz's location, asks about the Aurora. After politely asking for more information, the computer provides one final visual before the reactor starts to explode thanks to the Tyranids jumping into it. We try to get the spirit to stop the reactor, but of course it won't cooperate, so we have to do it manually. So we head down and begin to defend the reactor core while it removes its power source. After another genocide, and despite the amount of creatures that made it through, causing the reactor to be at 48% integrity, it successfully shuts down and we get the hell out of there. Titus very vaguely gives the squad some answers as to what it is he saw in the files, and we go to speak with the captain again. Titus attempts to warn Akaran that he's seen this artifact before on Graia. In the first game, Titus held the artifact and somehow didn't die. He obviously doesn't believe us and sends us to go find Luz on the planet below. The gentlemen complain about not getting more info from Titus and engage in some slight racism against the tech priests before heading out on the Thunderhawk. Our engine briefly fails, causing a minor crash, and once on the surface, we watch a bridge get blown up before facing more scum. We then conduct more violence alongside the soldiers and meet up with another Marine who tells us that his squad was taken out by the creatures ahead. We naturally steamroll through another ambush, and Gadriel tries to unlock our tragic backstory, trademark, before we head on through and avenge the Marines by taking out this fat floating bastard. With the thing dead, we continue on and make it through yet another ambush before some fellows arrive and bring us to the dome. Once inside, the soldiers stationed here refuse to cooperate with Viralis, and once they get called out, they kill him with an explosion. With those soldiers now dead, the heretics arrive and begin to prove a slight problem. We then head into the temple where Chiron gets angry and jumps in to fight them without thinking. Not wanting his squadmate to die, Titus and Gadriel provide cover fire while Chiron deals with them head on while we fend for ourselves. With magic and shit now going on, we destroy the Chaos Altar and continue to cover Chiron while we inevitably regroup. Titus scolds Chiron for his recklessness, and we move on to face against more of the heretic forces. We manage to find the soldiers trying to get Luz, so we hold down the fort until we can destroy the altar and open the door. We inform Luz that Nozick is dead and he has to finish his work, to which he is understandably shocked and sad. We of course accompany Luz back to the Thunderhawk, and once back at the battle barge before he leaves, Titus warns him of the artifact's power. Luz then gives a little lore dump about Titus allegedly dying to the artifact's power while holding it on Graia as retaliation. The lads continue to try and get Titus to open up about his life and naturally fail. Titus then continues to warn Akaran of the weapon and then gets him to let him down to send a message to Lord Calgar by locating the Tyranid hive mind. We then head back downstairs where Skeletor tells us to be very careful with the message we send to Calgar as it could turn the tide for the war. Luz then starts snooping through Titus's medical files, much to his disapproval, and we head to the ship where we meet the squads that will face the Hive Tyrant as well as figure out who is disabling our communications. Gadriel continues to distrust Titus's plans, and Titus finally tells the gentleman that he was a Black Shield accused of corruption. Once we land, we begin our journey to the relay. We get a horde dropped on us and fight through them with no issue at all. I then accidentally shoot at this tank, then follow it out where we tell the other team that the hive mind isn't really dead. We continue our violence and eventually make our way through a checkpoint, and once we emerge outside, we hit a dead end and Titus summons a Hammerfall bunker to help. The bunker then arrives and we head inside as it shoots down groups of gargoyles. Inside the bunker, we once again collect jump packs, and Gadriel continues to argue with Titus until he takes off by himself. He then attempts to become the main character of the game until Titus catches up with him and reminds him of his place. We find ourselves fighting more scum with the soldiers, and after some parkour and more jump pack and chainsword combos, another Carnifex arrives, so we jump it and take it out with little issue. Its siblings, however, didn't quite appreciate that, as 3 more arrive and attempt to violate us before Team Talassa takes out the Hive Tyrant, ending the Tyranids for what seems to be good. The squad heads inside, and on the elevator ride, Gadriel requests transfer after this mission because Titus is simply too awesome for him to handle. Once inside, we meet with this psychic lady who reads Titus's minds. And after some weird psychic shit, Titus yet again gets accused of heresy, and Gadriel attempts to take him out. As the two fistfight, Chiron simply shoots the psychic lady, and it is revealed to be the sorcerer Imora in disguise. With this reveal, Phase 1 of the boss fight goes by with no issue, and once Phase 2 starts, it becomes a Dark Souls boss. After putting up a fight, he simply runs away like a bitch, and we head back to the ship. Titus does not berate Gadriel, instead telling him to calm down and stay focused on the mission at hand. Back at the barge, Akaran tells us that the heretics have made their way to Aurora, and tells Titus that he low-key might have been right about the weapon. Gadriel gives a little history lesson and tells us that there's a decommissioned battle barge on the planet below that could be used as a ram. Akaran likes the idea and sends us on our way. Skeletor then summons us and berates Titus for the heresy accusation and for killing the psychic lady. On our way down to the Thunderhawk, Akaran gives the motivational speech to all of the second company before we head out on our mission. I stop by Galeo to look at some stuff and discover that I can't change my melee weapon, and he in turn tells us that we might be cooked. Before he heads out, Titus embraces his inner Optimus Prime and does some motivational speaking of his own. Finally, with the whole squad ready, we begin our flight to war. Gadriel shows his character arc by apologizing to Titus, and Titus tells him of his previous acts of failing his team. We have a minor team bonding experience and begin our descent onto the planet. This descent is in the form of a skydiving segment where we need to avoid debris while falling from orbit. When we land, I remove some heads and then discover why the game wouldn't let me change my melee weapon. Turns out, it auto-equipped the Thunder Hammer, and I can safely say that this thing fucks hard. After some more jump pack shenanigans, we make it to the cathedral and place the beacon for the barge. And it's here where I get to see how good the hammer is, and don't worry, you'll all find out soon. The broken down barge arrives and rams the central pillar, and we need to go find Luz again to try and stop him. On the way, I engage in some hardcore God of War gameplay as I tear through these scumbags with nothing but the hammer, and eventually make it to the dig site where I continue to use the hammer to, as the Doomsayer would say, rip and tear until it is done. Once through those enemies, we find Luz holed up with the Aurora, and Imura arrives, summoning a Hellbrute to do his dirty work. Despite many close calls with this thing, we take it down, and Luz rotates the artifact and seemingly banishes Imura from this plane of existence. This obviously does not work though, and Imura returns, killing Luz and dropping the whole building on top of the squad. As you should expect by now though, nothing can stop these lads, and after breaking through a brick wall, we begin the ascent to the surface to find Akaran and the Second Company. On the way, we recap that Imura was both influencing Luz's mind as well as things in general to bring Luz here to unleash absolute hell on this world. We eventually find Akaran and accompany him through the ruins, raining the hammer down on all those who dare oppose the Space Marines. On the way, Titus proves how differently he was built by straight up walking through this thing's fire, and we eventually make it to more ruins, where we break away from the captain. After splitting from him, we eventually find a group of the Second Company, where we raise the banner and fight against the heretic forces advancing upon us. The army advancing is then taken out by Lord Calgar and his forces arriving to aid in the fight. We inform him of all the bullshit going on and make it to a smaller version of the giant central obelisk, where Gadriel grabs hold of it and rotates it. This seemingly has some effect on the enemy, so we send the other two teams to find 2 of the 3 remaining mini-obelisks while we go to find the third. On the way, more hammer usage occurs, and a Hellbrute decides it wants to be difficult as I get taken down for a minute before we eventually take the thing out. As we've been traveling, the other 2 obelisks rotate, and so we continue through the caves. As we move, a Dreadnought arrives and goes absolutely ham on a Hellbrute, then joins the fight against the heretics. It proves very useful as we tear through more enemies and locate the final obelisk replica, which Chiron decides to turn this time. The team rejoins the main fight as Umura summons the bird demon and runs away. Calgar follows with us in tow, and we find ourselves in a void-like realm. As we move through it, Imura continues to try and manipulate us, to which we ignore and eventually come face to face with the sorcerer himself. He tries to get us to join him, and we decline by opening fire. And thus begins the final boss fight of the game. Through the efforts of the team, my gun, and the newly reacquired chainsword, Titus manages to put up a fight against the sorcerer until he brings out the bird demon again. Despite its massive size though, we take it out and almost immediately start tripping balls in what can only be described as tradition for these videos at this point. In the void we find Calgar and prove that we're not an illusion, and with this new proof, he leads us through the illusion, taking every enemy out along the way. Once we reach the central light pillar, shit hits the fan real quick, and after some encouraging words from Calgar, Titus gets up and grabs the artifact, destroying it once and for all, and Imura along with it. When he awakens, the squad is back in reality, and Calgar tells him to get up, for their work is far from over. And with the cheers of the Marines around him, victory is claimed and the squad returns to the battle barge. Titus is given the laurels of victory as proof of his great deeds, and Calgar apologizes for not getting him back out of the Death Watch sooner, as well as the Inquisition's incompetence. He then informs Titus that there's a mission that will take him far away from the company and that he'll be briefed by Skeletor before they leave. Titus says his farewells to the squad, who let him know that he will be missed dearly. Skeletor then informs Titus that while he may have earned everyone else's trust back, he's still suspicious of him and removes his helmet to reveal that he is in fact Leandros, the Space Marine who caused Titus's punishment in the first place. Titus then heads onto the ship, gives one last look to the Second Company, and embarks on his next journey. And thus ends our journey with the Second Company and with Space Marine 2. While I know this might have been a slight departure from past content like the Arkham videos, I wanted to try something new to coincide with my break from the Batman content. I didn't think I was going to like this game. I had heard so much about it over the few years of its release, but never really had any interest in playing through it. Despite this, one of my friends told me I should play it with him, and since I didn't have it, he decided to gift it to me, and that's what really got me to start playing it. As I went through the game, I found myself enjoying it more and more, and while it's not in my favorites of all time, I still think it was a great game that I can't wait to jump into again with my friends. Now with all that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. While it was a little different, I still had a lot of fun making it. Thank you all for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content. And only if you want to though, because I'm not going to force you. As always, I've been your host Penguin Power, and I'll see you next time. Take care everyone.